I want you to picture, just for a second, um, a high-stakes corporate takeover,
Mm-hmm.
like the kind you see in the financial news or, prestige television. What are the images that immediately pop into your head? You're probably picturing a massive polished mahogany boardroom table.
Right, exactly.
You're picturing sharp, tailored suits, a stack of heavily redacted non-disclosure agreements, and this incredibly tense, suffocating silence that is really only broken by the sound of a very expensive pen scratching across a multi-million-dollar contract.
Yes.
You expect a certain level of, I guess, cold, sanitized decorum, right?
You expect a system governed by rigid, predictable rules. Corporate warfare, as we typically understand it, is entirely binary.
Yeah.
It operates strictly within the confines of established law, where, aggression is mediated through lawyers, proxy votes, and carefully worded press releases.
Exactly. But now I want you to completely shatter that image, like throw it out the window.
God.
Imagine that right in the middle of that silent, tense boardroom, someone violently kicks the double doors completely off their hinges.
Oh, wow.
And standing there in the doorway, stepping over the splintered wood, isn't a team of high-powered attorneys. It is an actual literal witch.
Right.
And standing next to the witch is an anthropomorphic pink penguin
Mm-hmm.
and a clown. And instead of settling this hostile takeover with a shareholder vote or like a leveraged buyout, they decide to settle it by hurling a computer keyboard directly at the CEO's head.
And the crucial element to understand here, the thing that elevates this beyond mere absurdity, is that within the reality of their universe, the contracts they are fighting over, the authority they are seizing, is absolutely 100% legally binding.
Yep.
The stakes aren't just high, they are existential. The rules of governance are enforced through physical dominance, but the corporate consequences of that dominance are absolute.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we have an absolute monster of an assignment for you. We are unpacking a massive, multi-layered stack of transcripts from a universe that is, frankly, wildly unpredictable, deeply complex, and honestly, a little terrifying when you really look at the underlying psychology.
It really is.
We are stepping into the chaotic, high-stakes world of fight wrestling and the Spring 2 7832, sometimes known as Spectre 732 shows.
For those trying to wrap their heads around the mechanics of this space, it's vital to define what we're actually looking at.
Right.
Because this isn't just a traditional wrestling promotion, nor is it a standard corporate drama. It is a surreal, broadcasted ecosystem where anthropomorphic animals, mythological entities, and living toys are locked in a perpetual violent struggle for administrative control.
Yeah, they aren't just fighting for a shiny belt.
No, not at all. They are fighting for titles like Metal Admin and Metal Co-host.
Which, we need to clarify right out of the gate, are not just symbolic trophies. In this universe, holding the title of Metal Admin or Metal Co-host means you hold actual, functional corporate booking power.
Yes.
You get to dictate reality. You get to make the matches, control the narrative, and wield supreme corporate-style authority over everyone else. It is the ultimate currency.
The absolute peak.
So our mission for you today is to map out this chaotic landscape. We're going to track the bitter rivalries, the absolute psychological meltdowns, and the bizarre rookie debuts that are all hurtling toward one incredibly explosive date.
May 9, 2026.
Exactly. May 9, 2026.
We are going to examine the anatomy of a power struggle. Because every single action in this universe, whether it's signing a contract, demanding a title shot, or simply ignoring a defeated rival in a hallway, sets off a massive, uncontrollable chain reaction.
Mm-hmm.
To truly understand the powder keg that is waiting to explode on May 9th, we can't just look at the final destination. We have to look at the genesis of the current regime. We have to look at what happens when the ultimate prize is finally won.
Which brings us to the newly crowned royalty of this universe. And this is where the dynamic gets completely flipped on its head. Usually in any sport or any narrative, winning the biggest prize is the resolution.
Right, the happy ending.
You win the championship, the confetti falls from the ceiling, you pop the champagne, and you finally get to breathe. But here, in the Spring 2 7832 universe, winning the title is the exact moment you paint a massive glowing target on your own back.
It's the classic burden of leadership, but hyper-accelerated.
Yeah.
The transcripts we're analyzing today show the transition from challenger to hunted prey playing out in real time, and the psychological toll it takes is immediate.
So let's look at Ludwig. Ludwig has just emerged victorious from a massive, grueling battle royale. And let's be clear about what a battle royale requires in this universe. It's not just skill. It is sheer exhausting endurance.
Oh, absolutely.
You are fighting off multiple opponents simultaneously, constantly looking over your shoulder, and Ludwig survives it. He climbs the absolute mountain and claims the supreme title of metal co-host. But there's a massive layer of historical context here that we have to explain, right? Ludwig hasn't just been waiting in the wings for a few months.
Precisely. Ludwig's victory is the culmination of a massive comeback arc. The sources indicate he had been away from this business for years.
Right.
He took a significant hiatus, completely removed from the ecosystem, and only returned recently, around 2023 or 2024.
Okay, wow.
So you have a veteran who left, watched the landscape evolve without him, and then had to claw his way back through a modernized, highly competitive roster to reclaim his spot at the absolute top.
Imagine the emotional high of that moment. You've doubted yourself, you've wondered if the game passed you by, and now you are standing in the center of the ring, holding the ultimate proof that you are still the best.
You'd expect a celebration.
Right. You would expect a moment of pure, unadulterated jubilation. A cheerful speech about the journey, thanking the fans, relishing the victory.
Right.
But that is not what Ludwig does at all.
No. His reaction is a fascinating case study in elite-level paranoia.
He steps up to the microphone, the adrenaline is still pumping, he's holding the metal co-host title, and he immediately uses his victory speech to issue a threat. He uses the biggest, brightest spotlight of his entire career to put a target squarely on his bitter rival, Witch. Ludwig stands there and literally declares, "No more Witch."
He just goes right for him.
He issues stark, aggressive demands that Witch must not attempt to cash in on him during the upcoming Elimination Treasure Hunter match.
Let's break down the mechanics of what he's referring to because it explains his terror. The Elimination Treasure Hunter match is an upcoming fixture where the winner essentially earns a golden ticket.
Like a briefcase in other promotions.
Exactly. It's a legally binding contract that allows them to challenge the metal co-host or metal admin for their title at any time in any place.
That is terrifying.
It is a persistent, hanging threat. Ludwig hasn't even held his newly won title for a full 24 hours, the sweat isn't even dry, and his mind is entirely consumed by the theoretical threat of Witch acquiring that contract.
I have to say, looking at this objectively, this seems like a completely unhinged strategy.
How so?
Well, you win the biggest prize of your career, and you immediately spend your spotlight threatening someone who wasn't even the runner-up in your match. Doesn't that just signal to the entire locker room, and especially to Witch, that Witch is already living rent-free in Ludwig's head?
That's a valid point.
By explicitly standing there and saying, "Please don't cash in on me," you are basically handing your rival a fully drawn map to your deepest psychological vulnerabilities.
I would actually counter that it's not unhinged. It's a terrifyingly rational response to an irrational environment.
Okay, unpack that.
You're looking at this through the lens of traditional sportsmanship where confidence is key. But Ludwig is operating in an ecosystem where surprise attacks are institutionalized. His paranoia isn't a weakness, it's the only thing keeping him alive.
That's fair.
However, you are absolutely correct that from a PR perspective, it's a disastrous showing of insecurity. He is elevating Witch's status simply by acknowledging him. A truly secure autocrat ignores the peasants until they breach the castle walls. Ludwig is standing on the parapet screaming at a guy who is just walking down the street.
And it's not just Witch he's worried about. Look at how heavily Ludwig leans on his faction during this exact same speech.
Oh, the member's evil.
Yeah, he's standing there desperately citing his allies, Morton and Pink Penguin, for support. He's puffing his chest out, specifically calling out all the other memberships, the lions, the giraffes, the dinos, and declaring that his faction, the members' evil, is stronger than all of them combined.
It's projecting.
Totally. He is frantically trying to build a fortress of words around himself because he intuitively knows that the physical title of metal co-host offers zero actual protection.
The subtext of that speech is a desperate plea for deterrence. He's saying, look how many friends I have, look how strong we are, please don't attack me. And the contrast between Ludwig's frantic defensive posturing and what is happening simultaneously with the other major title is striking.
Yes.
We have to look at Wendy.
Because concurrently, while Ludwig is having this paranoid coronation, Wendy wins the equivalent top-tier title of metal admin. And Wendy's victory is staggering. The sources explicitly note that to win this title, she tapped out some serious heavy hitters. We are talking about forcing Panda and Nightmare to submit.
That is no small feat.
Not at all. Now, for those unfamiliar with the mechanics of submission fighting in this universe, tapping out is not just losing. It is the ultimate concession of physical dominance.
Exactly.
You aren't caught by a surprise pinfall. You are put into a physical hold so painful, so inescapable, that you have to beg the referee to stop the match. Wendy did that to two absolute monsters.
She proved her supreme capability beyond any shadow of a doubt. But analyze her rhetoric post-victory compared to Ludwig's.
It's a complete 180.
Ludwig is frantic, locking the gate, screaming at shadows. Wendy, on the other hand, is already exhibiting this fascinating, almost unsettling detachment from her new title.
It's wild. She is basically dropping hints in her promos that she might not even want to stay as metal admin forever. She's floating the idea of an early exit. Imagine fighting through a brutal tournament, tearing through the roster, snapping limbs, and the very moment you finally sit in the CEO's chair, you start looking around for the fire exit. Why would she do that?
I don't think it's fear. I think it's supreme situational awareness.
Okay.
Wendy's hesitation suggests a profound understanding of the transient nature of power in the Spring 2 7832 universe. She recognizes what Ludwig is too blinded by ego to see. Titles here are radioactive.
Like a hot potato.
They're absolute hot potatoes. The sheer volume of scrutiny, the constant physical danger, the unending stream of challengers looking to make their name off your defeat, it all severely outweighs the prestige of holding the administrative power.
Right. The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Exactly. Wendy is a pragmatist. She proved she could take the mountain, but she's smart enough to know that living on the peak just means you're exposed to the lightning.
So it's essentially like winning the lottery, but instead of getting a giant check, the prize is just a massive glowing neon sign strapped to your back that says, "Mug me."
Yes, perfect analogy.
Wendy sees the sign and thinks, you know what, maybe I'll just leave. Ludwig sees the same sign, panics, and tries to hire a private army. It is a brilliant contract in leadership styles.
Absolutely.
But as fascinating as it is to look at the peak of the mountain and the paranoia of the kings and queens, we can't fully grasp this universe without looking at what happens at the absolute bottom.
The ecosystem requires balance. For every victor crowned in that battle royale, there is a wake of destruction left behind. And the psychological toll of defeat in this environment is catastrophic.
We have to talk about Mouse.
Oh, Mouse.
If Ludwig's story is about the paranoia of victory, Mouse's story is the anatomy of a complete and utter psychological meltdown. Put yourself in Mouse's shoes for a second.
Okay.
You are a competitor in this universe. You train for months. You diet, you strategize, you mentally prepare yourself for the sheer chaos of a massive battle royale. You walk down the entrance ramp, the crowd is roaring, you step over the ropes, and you are ready to carve out your legacy. The bell rings.
And within an eye blink, you are erased.
Erased is the perfect word. Mouse is not just eliminated. He is the very first person eliminated from the entire match. And the timeline the sources provide is absolutely brutal.
It's staggering.
Mouse lasts at absolute maximum 30 seconds to a minute. It is a devastating, humiliating, blink of an eye exit. You haven't even broken a sweat. You haven't even had time to realize the match has started, and you're already walking back up the ramp as a designated loser.
In the context of a battle royale, which is inherently designed to be a grueling endurance event, lasting 30 seconds isn't a competitive loss. It is a complete invalidation of your presence.
Right.
It means you were identified immediately as the weakest link and discarded without a second thought. But the truly fascinating element of Mouse's collapse isn't the elimination itself. It's a mechanism of his humiliation. It is who eliminated him, and more importantly, how they reacted afterward.
Right. The culprit who throws Mouse out is Dahl. And this is where the transcript shifts from a straightforward sports recap into a deeply unsettling psychological thriller. Because Mouse, understandably, is vibrating with rage. He just suffered the most embarrassing moment of his professional life. He storms backstage, furiously tracking down Dahl. Mouse finally corners Dahl, gets right in Dahl's face, and starts demanding answers.
He needs closure.
Exactly. Why him? Why so early? What was the strategic value of targeting Mouse right out of the gate? Mouse is looking for a reason, a justification, anything to make the 30-second loss mean something.
He is desperate for a narrative. He wants Dahl to say, I eliminated you because you were my biggest threat, or even, I eliminated you because I hate you. Either response gives Mouse's elimination meaning. It gives him agency.
But Dahl's response is bone-chilling. Dahl doesn't gloat. Dahl doesn't laugh in his face. Dahl doesn't even bother to defend the tactical decision. Dahl literally looks at Mouse, claims to have absolutely no idea what Mouse is talking about, refuses to engage in the conversation, turns around, and simply walks away.
It is the absolute weaponization of apathy.
It is so much worse than being mocked. Mouse isn't just angry that he lost a wrestling match anymore. He is fundamentally broken by the realization that his elimination, the defining, most agonizing moment of his entire career, was a complete afterthought to the person who did it.
Yes.
Dahl's total indifference shatters Mouse's reality. Mouse wants an epic blood feud rivalry, and Dahl doesn't even view him as a minor inconvenience.
That is a brilliant observation. Dahl's silence is an act of supreme violence against Mouse's ego. When someone actively hates you, they are at least validating your existence. They are acknowledging that you matter enough to despise.
Right.
By refusing to even acknowledge the event, Dahl strips Mouse of his identity as a competitor.
Yeah.
And when a competitor loses their identity, the resulting behavioral spiral is highly destructive and wildly unpredictable.
Which perfectly explains what happens next. Mouse is left holding this massive, toxic, overflowing reservoir of rage, and he has nowhere to put it, because his intended target, Dahl, absolutely refuses to be the receptacle.
Exactly.
So Mouse goes into a tailspin. The sources note he completely isolates himself. He shuts down, refusing to answer even basic questions from backstage personnel. He builds this impenetrable wall of hostility. And then poor, unsuspecting Panda wanders into the blast radius.
Panda becomes the proxy for Dahl.
Exactly. Panda, who by all accounts seems to just be a normal colleague checking in on a coworker who just had a bad night, approaches Mouse. And Mouse just absolutely snaps.
He loses it.
Without any provocation, Mouse aggressively, physically shoves Panda away, which instantly escalates into a massive, chaotic backstage brawl.
Yeah.
And Mouse doesn't stop there. He is so desperate for control that he goes out of his way to crash a completely separate reaction show, a broadcast he isn't even scheduled to be on, just so he can grab a live microphone and publicly scream about how he is breaking up with Panda because Panda annoys him.
I want to push back slightly on the idea that Panda is just an innocent bystander.
Okay, interesting.
While unprovoked in that specific moment, Panda represents vulnerability. Panda approached Mouse with empathy, or at least concern. In a universe governed by dominance, empathy is a weakness.
Ah, I see where you're going.
Mouse, having just been proven to be the weakest person in the battle royale, cannot tolerate being the subject of pity. By physically attacking Panda and publicly declaring a breakup, Mouse is attempting to reestablish himself as an aggressor.
That makes a lot of sense.
He's trying to dictate the terms of a relationship because he couldn't dictate the terms of his own elimination. It's a textbook trauma response playing out through physical violence.
That makes total sense. It's like, imagine getting fired from your corporate job, but you don't even get a meeting with HR. You just find a sticky note on your monitor that says, pack your desk, and your boss immediately blocks your phone number. You are so desperate for a reaction, for some kind of human friction, that you end up walking into a coffee shop on your way home and just screaming at the barista who smiled and asked how your day was going, because you need to feel like you have an impact on the world. Panda is the barista in this scenario.
And just to prove how malevolent the Spring 2 7832 universe is, it actively rewards and codifies this misplaced aggression. Management sees this completely unhinged, misdirected backstage fight, and their response isn't to send Mouse to therapy. Their response is to book an official singles match between Mouse and Panda.
Right, they put it on the card.
Yeah.
So now, Mouse finally has an outlet. He has a sanctioned legal opportunity to win a match, regain his momentum, and unleash all of his pent-up toxic anger onto Panda within the confines of the ring. The bell rings, Mouse is ready for his redemption arc, and what happens? Dahl interferes.
The architect of his misery returns just to twist the knife.
Yes, Dahl, the very person who refused to give Mouse 2 seconds of conversation backstage, actively goes out of their way to physically interfere in Mouse's match. They ruin the entire contest.
Yeah.
Ruthless.
The referee calls for a disqualification, the match is thrown out, and the whole thing devolves into yet another massive, structureless brawl. Dahl won't acknowledge Mouse's existence in a hallway, but will expend physical energy to ensure Mouse can't even have a functioning, normal wrestling match with someone else. It is purely diabolical.
It illustrates a terrifying reality about the hierarchy of this ecosystem. Sometimes the most dangerous enemies aren't the ones standing in the ring screaming threats at you, like Ludwig.
Yeah.
The truly lethal enemies are the ones who silently dismantle your reality, manipulate your emotional state, and weaponize your own insecurities against you, like Dahl. Mouse is completely consumed by this psychological warfare, and Ludwig is completely consumed by his paranoia of Witch.
And while all the established veterans are busy tearing themselves apart, either fighting shadows or fighting baristas, they are completely ignoring the perimeter. They've left the gates completely unguarded.
Wide open. And because nature, especially in fight wrestling, absolutely abhors a vacuum, a literal flood of new challengers is actively exploiting their distraction.
We are witnessing a systemic destabilization. The established hierarchies are suddenly forced to account for an influx of highly unpredictable, untested talent. It creates a massive fog of war.
I love that term, the fog of war, because it isn't just one or two rookies showing up. It is an invasion from the outside memberships. Let's break down the sheer absurdity of the variables suddenly entering this ecosystem. First, we have the debut of the clowns.
Right, the clown.
We have Sun Clown and Moon Clown. But they don't debut as a unified, well-oiled tag team machine. The ink on their contracts isn't even dry before Moon Clown is already deeply obsessively paranoid that Sun Clown is secretly working against him and funneling information to their enemies.
Think about the strategic nightmare that presents to the rest of the locker room. How do you scout a tag team that doesn't even trust each other?
You can't.
Exactly. In game theory, you rely on rational actors acting in their own best interest. But if Moon Clown is more focused on sabotaging Sun Clown than winning the match, their actions become completely stochastic. They are agents of pure chaos.
And if clowns with severe trust issues weren't enough to throw off your game plan, the sources confirm that Alien officially signs a contract to join the podcast universe. We literally have an extraterrestrial entity entering the corporate ranking structure.
It's incredible.
Let's pause and appreciate that for a second. How does a veteran like a Ludwig, who is obsessed with the members' evil and traditional faction warfare, mentally prepare to wrestle an alien?
He can't. The paradigm has shifted too rapidly, and we see the immediate consequences of this paradigm shift playing out in the mid-card rankings. Look at Pink Penguin.
Right, Pink Penguin. Ludwig specifically cited Pink Penguin as a key ally, a pillar of his members' evil faction. And Pink Penguin proves his worth by securing a massive, shocking upset victory against Brain Elephant. This win qualifies Pink Penguin for the Elimination Treasure Hunter match.
Let's examine the mechanics of that upset. Pink Penguin defeating Brain Elephant isn't just a surprising outcome. It is a fundamental breakdown of established logic.
Yeah.
It signals to the entire roster that the old rules of weight classes, biological advantages, and established pecking orders no longer apply. The system is in absolute flux. When a penguin taps out an elephant, it means the physics of the universe are bending.
And nothing, absolutely nothing represents this bending of reality better than the arrival of the mini animal squad.
This is, without a doubt, one of the most fascinating and sociologically revealing developments in the entire transcript stack.
It is pure audacity.
Yeah.
So, a literal squad of miniature animals arrives on the scene. The sources list them out. Mini tiger, mini lion, mini cow, mini monkey, mini frog, a swarm of tiny competitors. And they don't do what rookies are supposed to do. They don't ask for a tryout match. They don't start at the bottom of the rankings. They walk directly into the corporate office and immediately demand a shot at the metal co-host or metal admin titles. They want the absolute top prizes on day one.
You have to look at the mechanism of their strategy. How does a group of untested rookies think they can bypass the entire bureaucratic structure? They're relying entirely on the concept of asymmetric warfare through swarm tactics.
Right.
They look at the current landscape. They see Ludwig having a paranoid meltdown on a microphone. They see Mouse attacking Panda over a sticky note level slight. And they deduce that the established power structure is actually incredibly fragile. They assume management is so desperate for order that they will just cave to the sheer volume of a mob.
It's the ultimate bluff.
Yeah.
But the universe, to its credit, actually pushes back on them.
Yeah.
The management looks at this swarm of mini animals and says, no, you don't get to just skip the line. You have to earn it.
Right.
So they force the issue. Mini Monkey steps up to represent the squad in an official singles match to prove they belong.
Yeah.
And what happens? The bluff is called. Mini Monkey is completely, utterly, and physically dismantled. He taps out. He is destroyed.
It serves as a brutal, necessary reality check for the rookies. It proves that while the political system of the universe is in chaos, the veterans still possess a vast superiority when it comes to inflicting actual physical damage. The veteran muscle memory is still intact.
But I'd argue the rookies still won the larger war. Because even though Mini Monkey got destroyed and lost the match, Look at what the mini animal squad accomplished just by showing up.
They took up space.
They took up oxygen, they took up screen time, they took up the mental bandwidth of the management and the veterans. And when the veterans are distracted by clowns, aliens, and swarms of mini animals, the true apex predators get to move in the shadows.
You are referring to the opportunists, the ones who thrive in the fog of war.
I am referring to Giraffe.
Mm.
The transcripts explicitly lay out Giraffe's strategy, and it is chilling in its calculated pragmatism.
Very calculated.
Giraffe looks at the chaos, the alien contracts, the paranoid clowns, the mini-squad demands, Mouse's complete mental break, and Giraffe decides not to engage with any of it. Giraffe's stated plan is incredibly simple. Lay absolutely low, do not get involved in the backstage brawls, conserve energy, win the elimination treasure hunter match, secure the golden ticket contract, and then just wait.
It is the ultimate outsourcing of labor.
Exactly. Giraffe is letting everyone else do the exhausting physical work of fighting. Giraffe plans to wait in the shadows until the main event champions have completely destroyed each other, and then casually stroll down to the ring and cash in the contract on whoever manages to survive the carnage.
It highlights a terrifying reality of the treasure hunter contract. The holder of that contract becomes a walking, ticking time bomb for the champions. It completely alters the strategic landscape.
And just to add one more ticking clock to an already overflowing scenario, we get a very brief but massive cameo from Black Cat.
Oh.
Black Cat appears in the transcripts just long enough to announce a highly anticipated official return date to the universe, June 1st, 2026. So now every single person on the roster knows that whatever the landscape looks like after the massive May 9th event, the entire chessboard is going to be flipped over again in a matter of weeks when Black Cat returns.
The pressure is unimaginable.
Right. So let me pose this thought experiment to you, based on everything we've just unpacked. With the sheer overwhelming volume of new characters, clowns sabotaging each other, extraterrestrials signing contracts, a literal swarm of miniature animals, and the looming threat of Giraffe holding a blank check, are veterans like Ludwig losing control of the narrative simply because there are, mathematically, too many variables for a single human brain to process.
That is precisely the mechanism of their downfall. You cannot plan a defense when the nature of the attack is fundamentally unpredictable. When a system is flooded with this degree of diverse, chaotic elements, standard strategic planning collapses.
Yeah.
Ludwig can't just dedicate his training camp to preparing for Witch anymore. Every time he walks down a hallway, he has to keep one eye out for Giraffe holding a briefcase, one eye out for the returning Black Cat, and constantly wonder if a mini lion is going to drop on him from the ceiling.
It's absurd.
This constant state of cognitive overload degrades the champion's physical and mental reaction time. And that degradation creates the exact opening a master tactician needs to bypass the entire system.
Which brings us to the absolute centerpiece of this entire deep dive, the most masterful, high-stakes, system-breaking tactical move of the entire saga.
Yes, Witch's move.
Amidst all this influx of new talent, amidst the literal fog of war and the distraction of everyone trying to qualify for the Elimination Treasure Hunter match, one veteran looks at the entire chaotic structure, realizes it's broken, and decides to just blow the whole thing up.
This is where Witch completely rewrites the rules of engagement for the entire Spring 2-7-8-32 universe.
Set the stage. Witch is officially scheduled to be a participant in that massive six-person Elimination Treasure Hunter match. This is the match we just talked about, the one Giraffe is plotting to win. It is a guaranteed, legally mandated pathway to a title shot. The match features Nightmare, Pink Penguin, Moon Clown, the Alien. If you win this match, you hold the contract and you control your own destiny. It is the ultimate safety net.
Right.
So what does Witch do with this golden opportunity? He officially withdraws. He just walks away from the tournament. He flat out refuses to compete alongside the rookies, the mid-carders, and the clowns.
It is a stunning, arrogant rejection of the established corporate ladder. But we have to look at the cold, hard math behind Witch's decision.
Okay, let's hear the math.
Witch understands that a six-person match involves far too much statistical variance. It relies too heavily on luck. You could be the best fighter in the ring, but one bad bounce, one temporary unholy alliance between a paranoid clown and an alien, and you get pinned, you lose your shot.
Yep.
Witch doesn't want a 16% statistical probability of earning a title shot. Witch wants a 100% guarantee.
So instead of fighting his way through the ring like a traditional competitor, Witch decides to take the fight directly to the C-suite, which corners the boss manager.
A bold move.
And we aren't talking about scheduling a polite Zoom call or knocking on an office door. which relentlessly, exhaustingly corners the supreme authority figure of the universe in a hallway and demands a one-on-one title match against Ludwig for the metal co-host title.
We really need to dissect the power dynamics of this specific interaction because it exposes a profound truth about bureaucracy.
Yeah.
The boss manager represents supreme institutional authority. But institutional authority is largely an illusion. It only holds power so long as everyone in the system mutually agrees to respect the rules, which is actively, aggressively refusing to respect the illusion.
The transcripts show the boss manager getting visibly deeply annoyed. The boss manager pulls out every single tool of corporate discipline available. He threatens Witch with severe suspension for blatant disrespect. He threatens to completely ban Witch from the memberships for breaking the established rules of the tournament. He tries to enforce the bureaucratic wall.
But doesn't work?
No, but Witch just doesn't care. Witch simply wears the boss manager down. It becomes a war of absolute attrition in a fluorescent-lit hallway. And eventually, incredibly, the boss manager just throws his hands up in defeat and caves to the demands. The match is made.
It is a phenomenal negotiation tactic born out of a deep psychological understanding of management, which realizes a fundamental truth about the boss manager.
Which is?
Despite all the posturing about rules, rankings, and tournaments, the boss manager is ultimately a promoter. And a promoter values compelling, high-stakes, emotionally resonant drama over strict bureaucratic integrity. A blood feud between Witch and Ludwig, born out of pure, unadulterated hatred, is a massively better main event than Ludwig fighting whoever happens to survive a match with a penguin and an alien, which leverages the boss manager's addiction to spectacle.
But the boss manager doesn't just hand over the keys to the kingdom for free.
Yeah.
He extracts a massive, terrifying toll for Witch, bypassing the system. The match is officially set for the explosive date, May 9, 2026. Witch versus Ludwig for the metal co-host title. But the stakes are raised to an apocalyptic level.
Oh, absolutely.
The boss manager explicitly decrees that if Witch loses this match, he doesn't just get bumped down the contender rankings. If Witch loses, he is suspended or entirely banned indefinitely from the memberships. His career, his existence in this universe, is permanently over.
It is the absolute definition of a high-risk, all-or-nothing gambit, which abandons the safety net of the tournament, takes his entire career, and pushes all of his chips into the absolute center of the table.
And the rules of the match make it even harder. The boss manager stipulates that the match will be fought under standard rules. That means countouts are in effect. Disqualifications are in effect.
Right.
And crucially, if Witch wins the match by disqualification. For example, if Ludwig gets desperate and hits Witch with a steel chair and the referee calls for the bell, Witch wins the match on paper, but he does not win the metal co-host title. The title can only change hands on a clean, decisive pinfall or submission.
It's a brilliant stipulation by the boss manager. It essentially protects the corporate asset, Ludwig.
Yeah.
It ensures that Witch can't just provoke Ludwig into making a mistake to win the belt, which has to actually physically defeat a desperate, paranoid champion cleanly, adding a monumental layer of difficulty to an already impossible gamble.
I have to challenge this entire strategy from a world-building perspective, though. Look at the devastating ripple effect this decision has on the rest of the roster.
Okay, let's hear it.
If Witch can just corner the boss in a hallway, aggressively annoy him until he gives up a main event title shot, and completely bypass the entire ranking system, doesn't that make the entire Elimination Treasure Hunter tournament totally, fundamentally pointless for everyone else involved?
That is the million-dollar question.
Think about it. Why are Giraffe and Pink Penguin out there risking their necks, destroying their bodies in a six-way match, trying to follow the rules, if they now have concrete proof that just complaining loudly gets you straight to the CEO's office?
You have just perfectly diagnosed the fatal flaw in the boss manager's leadership style, and it's exactly the weakness that Witch so surgically exposed.
Oh, yeah.
You are absolutely right. Granting Witch this match completely devalues the structural integrity of the entire promotion.
Exactly.
It sends a glaring neon message to the entire locker room that the squeaky wheel doesn't just get the grease, the squeaky wheel gets the deed to the entire factory.
Right.
But you have to look at it from Witch's perspective. The structural integrity of the Treasure Hunter tournament is completely irrelevant to him. His singular, obsessive goal is Ludwig. He recognized a shortcut, and he took it, knowing full well, and perhaps even relishing the fact that taking that shortcut might destroy the entire ecosystem in the process. He is an agent of targeted destruction.
And that targeted destruction brings us to the inevitable explosive collision. The shortcut has been successfully taken, The match is officially etched in stone. The stakes are at their absolute, dizzying highest. We are talking about career survival versus supreme corporate authority.
May 9th.
Yes, May 9th. And before they finally step into the ring to settle it all, the two bitter rivals finally meet face to face. But because this is the Spring 2 7832 universe, there is a massive game-changing twist to this confrontation.
Yes. The boss manager, perhaps finally realizing the uncontrollable powder keg he has created by giving in to Witch, attempts to enforce one final semblance of order.
The boss manager steps out and issues a strict, universe-wide decree. All outside memberships and allies are completely, unconditionally banned from interfering in the May 9th main event.
This is huge.
If Morton, if Pink Penguin, if Giraffe, if the Clowns, if anyone at all interferes in the match, there will be massive, severe consequences. The boss manager is essentially putting an invisible, legally binding force field around the ring.
This is a highly significant foundational shift in the narrative. By officially and legally isolating the combatants, the boss manager is systematically stripping away Ludwig's safety blanket.
Yeah.
Let's trace this back to the beginning of our deep dive. Remember Ludwig's very first action as the newly crowned champion. His instinct was to hide behind his faction, the members' evil. He used them as a verbal shield.
Right, he was desperately citing them.
Now that faction is legally barred from entering the building. It forces a pure, unadulterated resolution to the feud. It is just Ludwig and Witch, stripped of all excuses, all proxies, and all safety nets.
And the face-to-face segment proves just how volatile and terrifying that isolation is. Witch marches down to the ring to confront Ludwig. And Witch is utterly, terrifyingly fearless now that he knows Ludwig's safety net is gone.
He's in his element.
Witch immediately gets on the microphone and starts relentlessly taunting Ludwig. But he doesn't stop there. He starts taunting Ludwig's allies, Morton and Pink Penguin, who are standing right there at ringside.
It's brutal.
And because of the boss manager's ironclad decree, Morton and Pink Penguin literally cannot do anything. They have to swallow their pride, turn around, and physically walk away from their leader. They cannot touch Witch.
Yep.
And Witch just drinks it in. He feels completely intoxicatingly emboldened watching his rival's entire support system evaporate in real time.
It is psychological warfare at its absolute finest, which is systematically dismantling Ludwig's mental defenses before the opening bell of match even rings. He is visually proving to Ludwig that when the doors lock on May 9th, Ludwig will be entirely, terrifyingly alone.
Ludwig, pushed to the absolute psychological edge by this realization, completely panics. He snaps. He looks at Witch and challenges him to just grab the metal co-host item right then and there if he wants it so badly.
A huge mistake.
Let's unpack that. Ludwig is actively trying to bait Witch into making a catastrophic mistake. He is trying to provoke Witch into starting a physical fight, hoping that Witch will do something rash that gets him suspended or fired before the match on May 9th can even happen. Ludwig is looking for a technicality to save him.
But there are no technicalities left. The tension in the room is simply too high. The verbal sparring, the posturing, the psychological baiting, it all fails. The diplomacy completely, utterly breaks down.
It devolves into absolute visceral chaos. They aren't wrestling anymore. They aren't performing holds. They are fighting for their literal existence in this universe. The transcripts describe the set being physically violently destroyed.
Yeah, it's total pandemonium.
They were grabbing absolutely anything they can get their hands on. Heavy production boxes are being hurled across the room, computer keyboards are being ripped from desks and used as blunt force weapons.
It's savage.
Imagine a Witch and a corporate champion literally tearing the corporate infrastructure of their universe apart with their bare hands, and the broadcast simply goes off the air right in the middle of the carnage.
The physical destruction of that set is the perfect poetic metaphor for this entire saga. It mirrors the complete and total breakdown of order.
Wow, yeah.
Think about it. The bureaucracy failed, the rigid tournament structures failed, the factions and alliances failed, there is no more talking left to do. The illusion of control has evaporated, and the only thing left is the raw violence of May 9th.
It is exactly like two gladiators being locked inside a steel cage, and right before the bell rings, the referee intentionally takes the key, throws it out into the crowd, and walks away. There is no technicality, no rule book, and no outside help that can save them anymore. We, the audience, are just sitting outside the bars, listening to the destruction, waiting to see who actually manages to walk out alive.
And that terrifying cliffhanger is exactly where the Spring 2 7832 universe leaves us.
It is an absolutely incredible journey to look back on. Think about the massive ground we've covered today. We started at the peak of the mountain, examining Ludwig's paranoid, anxiety-ridden coronation, where the weight of the crown immediately turned him into a terrified, defensive autocrat.
Right.
We drop down to the valley to witness the absolute tragic downfall of Maus Fambita, a competitor who lost his grip on reality after a 30-second humiliation and ended up taking out his displaced rage on a poor, unsuspecting barista equivalent in Panda, all because Dahl weaponized silence against him.
Such a powerful storyline.
We watched the entire ecosystem destabilize as the fog of war rolled in, bringing with it paranoid clowns, extraterrestrial athletes, and the highly ambitious swarm-tactic mini-animal squad.
The mini-animal squad, incredible.
And it all converged and culminated in which looking at a broken corporate system and deciding to bypass it entirely, forcing a do-or-die, all-or-nothing ultimatum against the boss manager.
When you lay it all out like that, you realize that every single action, every paranoid promo, every backstage brawl, and every bureaucratic shortcut has been a carefully laid domino, leading directly to this exact moment.
It all comes down to May 9, 2026, a match where someone leaves as the ultimate supreme corporate authority and someone is erased from the universe entirely. But as we wrap up this massive deep dive, I want to bring you, the listener, back into the room for one final, deeply unsettling thought experiment.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Let's play out the scenarios. Let's say which wins. He conquers his rival, he takes the metal co-host title, and he achieves his ultimate obsessive goal. Or, conversely, let's say which loses. His massive gamble fails spectacularly, and he is banished from the memberships forever. Either way, the war between Ludwig and Witch finally ends. The dust settles. But what happens to the massive, gaping power vacuum that is left behind in the center of the ring?
That is the most dangerous, lingering question of all. Because remember what we discussed during the fog of war. Lurking in the shadows, entirely ignored by the warring kings who are too busy throwing keyboards at each other, is Giraffe.
Yes, Giraffe.
Or whoever manages to survive the elimination treasure hunter match. While Ludwig and Witch destroy each other, that opportunist will be standing just off camera, completely fresh, holding a legally binding contract.
A literal blank check.
A contract that legally permits them to walk into the ring and cash in on whoever the broken, exhausted survivor of May 9th happens to be.
Exactly. Because if this deep dive has taught us anything about the Spring 2 7832 universe, it's that where corporate boardrooms are invaded by clowns and disputes are settled with blunt force trauma, the end of a main event is never actually a conclusion. It's just the setup for the next devastating ambush.
You know, usually a corporate organizational chart is like a very clean, sterile document.
Right. Very rigid.
Yeah, exactly. You look at it and there's a certain comfort in the geometry of it all, you know? You have the CEO sitting at the very top. And from there, you've got these perfectly straight lines branching down to the vice presidents, the directors, the regional managers. It's totally binary.
Yeah, if you look at that piece of paper, you know exactly who reports to whom without any ambiguity.
Right. And like, if there's a dispute over resources or authority or whatever, you schedule a meeting, you open a spreadsheet, and you resolve it with a polite email thread.
Which is how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a system built entirely on a foundation of agreed upon rules, human resources protocols, and this implicit trust in the chain of command.
Exactly.
The whole point of that visible structure is to prevent chaos.
But when you step into the universe of the Spring 2 7832 Federation, or just Spring 732 as we'll call it, you basically have to take that organizational chart, set it on fire, throw it through a folding table, and just watch as someone literally assaults the director of human resources with a computer keyboard.
Which, spoiler alert, actually happens in the material we're looking at today.
It totally does. We're looking at a management landscape where bureaucratic power isn't granted by, like, a board of directors. It is seized through physical trauma.
It's wild.
So today, we're opening up a massive stack of source material from the Spring 732 universe. And we're not just looking at corporate memos here.
No, definitely not.
We are analyzing transcripts of breathless live commentary, audio of bodies hitting the canvas, and these hot mic recordings of backstage betrayals, all leading up to the massive May 9th, 2026 event.
Right. The stakes for May 9th are just astronomical.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Because if you want to understand what happens when raw, unhinged human ambition collides with the complete failure of institutional management, this is the ultimate case study.
It really is. The documentation we have paints a terrifying picture of an ecosystem that is just on the brink of total collapse.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, we are analyzing a universe where formal administrative titles are literally fought for in battle royals,
Mhm.
where legal contracts are signed on clipboards in the middle of active war zones,
It's bonkers.
and where the most coveted executive position, this title of metal co-host, requires you to physically survive a 20-person melee.
Right. So, I mean, imagine you are a competitor in this universe. The physical and psychological toll must be just staggering.
Oh, completely.
Let's look at the power shift that just completely upended the Spring 732 hierarchy right off the bat, because we just had one of those massive 20-person battle royales conclude.
A grueling event by all accounts.
To give you some context on what it takes to survive one of these, you aren't just fighting one person, you are managing threats from 360 degrees.
Yeah, you can't just focus on the guy in front of you.
Exactly. It is an exercise in extreme caloric output, spatial awareness, and sheer pain tolerance. And emerging from this absolute meat grinder, completely exhausted, we have a character named Ludwig.
Right, Ludwig.
And by surviving this, Ludwig secures the title of Metal Co-Host.
Now, the terminology there is super crucial.
Yeah, break that down for us.
So, in a traditional corporate environment, a co-host or an admin is a role defined by your daily responsibilities, right?
Yeah.
But in Spring 732, the title of Metal Co-Host functions mechanically, like a championship belt.
Wait, really? Like a physical belt?
Well, it comes with a physical, tangible object, the medal. And that object signifies absolute authority.
Meaning you can't just, like, put it on your LinkedIn profile and call it a day.
No. You have to carry the physical proof of your executive power around with you.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And carrying that physical proof changes the entire dynamic of how you exist in that space. It grants you influence over the broadcasts, sure. But the hidden cost of the medal is that it instantly paints a massive target on your back.
Because everyone can see it.
Exactly. You are no longer just a competitor on the roster. You are the infrastructure. Everyone who wants to move up the corporate ladder now realizes that the fastest way to do so is to physically dismantle you and take the prop.
Wow. And while Ludwig is securing this co-host spot through, Marathon of Survival, we have another executive ascension happening simultaneously.
Right, the admin title.
Yeah. A character named Wendy manages to secure the title of Metal Admin, but the mechanics of how she gets there are entirely different.
Completely different approach.
She doesn't outlast a giant crowd. She engages in targeted, agonizing joint manipulation. The transcripts show Wendy tapping out two incredibly formidable opponents.
Panda and Nightmare.
Yes, Panda and Nightmare. She taps them out to win her title.
And that's fascinating because forcing an opponent to submit, making them physically tap the mat to signal they can no longer endure the pain that is a highly intimate, psychologically devastating way to strip someone of their power.
Oh, for sure. It's not like getting knocked out where you just wake up and it's over.
Right. You have to consciously admit defeat. Wendy didn't just win that match. She broke the will of her opposition.
You would think that two people reaching the pinnacle of their careers on the exact same night would share a similar sense of triumph, right?
You assume so, yeah.
But when we analyze the post-match audio, the contrast between Ludwig and Wendy is just jarring.
It's night and day.
Let's look at Wendy first. She's just forced Panda and Nightmare into submission. When the cameras catch up with her for her energy segment, there is no heavy breathing.
No panic.
She isn't looking over her shoulder at all. The interviewer asks about her future holding the Metal Admin title, and Wendy simply shrugs and casually mentions that she might just, quote, stay forever.
I love that. She embodies this natural confidence.
Oh, totally.
Wendy understands that she has already demonstrated her capacity for violence in the ring, so she doesn't need to project it verbally backstage. She has fully internalized her new administrative power.
Now contrast that breezy, untouchable energy with Ludwig.
Oh boy. Ludwig.
Ludwig has just survived the hardest match of his life. He has the metal co-host prop in his hands. This is the moment to pop champagne, right? To celebrate with his allies, Big Penguin and Morton.
That's what a normal person would do.
Instead, Ludwig grabs a microphone and uses his victory speech to hyperventilate about his rival, Witch.
It's so uncomfortable to read.
He starts frantically screaming into the camera, just yelling, "No more Witch, he's pathetic, don't give him the challenge."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the psychology of that moment reveals a deep, fundamental crack in Ludwig's armor.
How so?
Well, he mentions in his promo that he has been waiting years for this position since his return to the Federation. He has finally achieved his ultimate goal. yet he is completely incapable of occupying the moment.
Because he's so paranoid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He is consumed by imposter syndrome, masquerading as aggression.
It honestly reminds me of a political campaign.
Well, that's a good analogy.
Like, imagine a politician who wins an incredibly grueling, down-to-the-wire election. They step up to the podium on election night, the confetti is falling all around them, and instead of delivering a unifying victory speech to consolidate their base, they spend 20 minutes screaming about a rival who wasn't even on the ballot.
Right. It's so counterproductive.
If you are watching that as a constituent, or in this case, as a locker room full of hungry fighters, you aren't looking at Ludwig and thinking, wow, what an unshakable leader. You are thinking, this guy is absolutely terrified.
Precisely. By centering Witch in his own victory speech, Ludwig implicitly validates Witch as a peer.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, he's elevating his rival to the same status as his newly won title. In a hyper-competitive ecosystem like Spring 732, projecting calm is a defensive mechanism.
Right, like Wendy did.
Exactly like Wendy. When you show the entire roster exactly what keeps you awake at night, you are providing them with the psychological blueprint to destroy you.
And he actually takes it a step further than just showing his fear. He literally hands Witch the instruction manual on how to ruin him.
He really does.
Ludwig starts rambling about a specific contractual loophole. He looks right down the lens of the camera and warns Witch not to use the upcoming Elimination Treasure Hunter contract to ambush him.
It's almost comical.
He is literally screaming, "Don't you think about cashing me in during this match? You can't."
The irony is just profound. Ludwig has acquired the ultimate authority in the company, yet he is attempting to preemptively legislate his safety through desperate pleading.
Which never works.
Never. He understands the mechanics of the universe he inhabits, he knows the treasure hunter match exists, and he knows the winner can bypass the traditional hierarchy.
Right.
So rather than preparing for that inevitability quietly, he tries to verbally forbid it on live television, which only highlights his massive vulnerability.
Well, hold that thought on the Treasure Hunter contract, because the mechanics of that are going to completely dictate the geopolitical landscape of Spring 732 later on.
Oh, absolutely.
But before we get to the high-level maneuvering, we need to look at the collateral damage of the battle royale that put Ludwig in power in the first place.
Right, because there were 19 losers in that match.
Exactly. If you are one of the 19 people who lost that match, you don't just get to go home and take a shower. You have to deal with the psychological fallout of your failure. And that brings us to an incident in the transcripts involving a character named Mouse.
This is perhaps the most illuminating case study in emotional dysregulation we have in the entire source material.
It's wild.
The inciting incident is incredibly brief, but the ripple effects are massive.
Okay, so to put you in the room, the bell rings for this 20-person battle royale. It is immediate, terrifying chaos. Everyone has spent months training, dieting, strategizing for this one shot at executive power.
Tensions are at an all-time high.
And within the first 30 seconds of the match, 30 seconds, a character named Doll simply grabs Mouse, leverages his body weight, and casually tosses him over the ropes, eliminating him.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
The humiliation of a 30-second elimination cannot be overstated. A battle royale is fundamentally a test of endurance.
Yeah,
It's
a marathon.
So to be removed from the equation before you have even acclimated to the environment, it's a total invalidation of your professional worth.
It's like you didn't even show up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It tells the audience, and more importantly, the management, that you are not a factor in this universe.
You can imagine the adrenaline spike. Mouse doesn't just lose, he is completely embarrassed. The transcripts describe Mouse storming backstage, just vibrating with blinding, incoherent rage.
He's totally out of control.
He tracks down Doll in a hallway. Now, if you are Mouse, you are looking for narrative closure here. You want Doll to say, "I targeted you because you're a threat," or "I've hated you for years."
Right. You want a reason.
You want a grand, dramatic justification for why your career was just derailed.
Because human beings crave causality, especially when they suffer trauma. We need the punishment to fit some sort of logical framework, otherwise the suffering feels meaningless.
Exactly. So Mouse confronts Doll, demanding an explanation. And Doll's reaction is chilling.
So cold.
Doll doesn't get defensive. Doll doesn't gloat. Doll simply looks at Mouse, completely oblivious, and basically says, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Ouch.
And then Doll just turns around and walks away.
Doll utilizes weaponized apathy here.
Weaponized apathy. That's a great term.
It is a profoundly cruel tactic. By refusing to even acknowledge the significance of the elimination, Dahl denies Mouse the dignity of a conflict.
He won't even give him a fight.
Right. Dahl essentially tells Mouse that the event that ruined Mouse's night was so utterly insignificant to Dahl's broader strategy that it didn't even register in his memory.
I am stuck on the mechanics of what happens next, though, because Mouse is standing there, his brain is short-circuiting, he's absolutely furious. Dahl has walked away.
Leaving Mouse alone with all that anger.
Exactly. And at this exact moment, a character named Panda approaches Mouse. Now, based on the backstage audio we have, Panda is not looking for a fight.
No, not at all.
Panda was tapped out by Wendy earlier in the night, so maybe there's some shared camaraderie in losing, Panda approaches Mouse to offer comfort, to act as a peacemaker, asking what happened.
A very normal human response.
And Mouse completely loses his mind and verbally attacks Panda. Why? Why attack the one person offering you a lifeline?
Well, we are looking at a textbook manifestation of emotional displacement.
Break that down.
When an individual experiences acute humiliation in a high-stress environment, their sympathetic nervous system is flooded with adrenaline. They are primed for fight or flight.
Right.
Mouse wants to fight Dahl, but Dahl has removed himself from the physical and emotional battlefield. Dahl projected an aura of complete untouchability.
So Mouse has all this kinetic energy and literally nowhere to put it.
Precisely. The human brain, desperate to discharge that toxic cocktail of stress hormones, scans the environment for the safest available target.
And Panda is safe.
Panda approaches with empathy, concern, and open body language. Paradoxically, in a predatory environment like Spring 732, empathy registers as vulnerability. Panda is safe. Mouse lashes out at Panda, not because Panda wronged him, but because Panda is standing there, willing to engage. Mouse projects all of his feelings of powerlessness onto the only person offering him grace.
The audio of this is incredibly stressful to listen to. Mouse just starts screaming, "Don't ask me what happened! Get away from me! Get out of my segment!"
It's really tough to hear.
And Panda, who again was just trying to be a supportive colleague, immediately gets defensive. Which makes sense. If you extend an olive branch and someone snaps it over their knee, your natural instinct is to protect your own ego.
Of course.
Panda yells back, "Stupid Panda, will you shut up?" And within seconds, this misunderstanding devolves into a violent physical brawl right there in the hallway.
The tragedy of miscommunication.
Yeah.
Mouse sacrifices a potential ally to service his own bruised ego.
And the consequences of this lack of emotional control are devastating for both of their careers. This hallway scuffle turns into a formal, bitter feud.
It escalates so quickly.
The bureaucracy steps in and books Mouse and Panda in a high-profile main event match on a Monday night show. Two athletes who had zero animosity toward each other 48 hours prior are now forced to tear each other apart for the amusement of the audience.
And consider how that match concludes.
Oh, it is the ultimate insult. They are in the ring having this brutal match, and who decides to casually stroll down the ramp? Dahl, the original architect of the trauma. Dahl interferes in the match, immediately triggering a disqualification. The bell rings. The match is ruined.
It's almost poetic.
Neither Mouse nor Panda gets a victory, neither moves up the rankings, and their bodies are battered for absolutely no administrative gain.
Dahl's interference represents the perfect, toxic, closed loop.
That's exactly what it is.
Dahl inflicted the initial wound, walked away while the infection spread to Panda, and then returned at the exact moment necessary to ensure that neither of them could find resolution. It showcases how a lack of emotional regulation doesn't just hurt you, it makes you a puppet for opportunists. Mouse let his emotions dictate his actions, and he became collateral damage to his own insecurity.
So, what does this all mean? Well, it is a phenomenal contrast to what is happening at the executive level. Because while Mouse is letting his anger control him, we have another character who is experiencing the exact same feelings of rage and slight, but who decides to weaponize those emotions against the very fabric of the Federation's management.
You're talking about Witch.
I'm talking about Witch.
Witch's maneuvering here elevates the concept of a backstage dispute into a masterclass in bureaucratic hostage negotiation.
Let's trace the timeline here. Ludwig wins the Metal co-host title and immediately starts having a public panic attack about Witch.
Right, screaming into the camera.
Witch hears this. Witch realizes that he's living rent-free in the champion's head. So Witch decides he doesn't want to play by the rules anymore. He doesn't want to climb the ladder. He wants to teleport to the top.
He wants a shortcut.
Witch demands a direct one-on-one match against Ludwig for the Metal co-host title at the May 9th event.
Now, the structural issue with Witch's demand is that he is already contractually obligated to participate in the Elimination Treasure Hunter match.
Right.
This is a massive six-person gauntlet. The winner of that gauntlet earns the right to challenge for the title. You can't just skip it.
But the treasure hunter match is a meat grinder. You have a 1 in 6 chance of winning, and even if you do, your body is going to be completely broken.
It's statistically a terrible bet.
So Witch looks at those odds and decides to simply opt out. He publicly, officially withdraws from the treasure hunter match. He just quits.
Which is unprecedented.
He leaves a massive glaring hole in the promoter's marquee match for the evening. And once he has created this logistical nightmare for management, he targets the boss manager.
The interaction we have on tape between Witch and the boss manager is a profound documentation of leadership collapse.
The acoustics of this confrontation are wild. Witch corners the boss manager, and it is not a dignified closed-door salary negotiation. Far from it. Witch is practically hyperventilating. He is screaming at the top of his lungs, grabbing the microphone. The reports indicate he is physically damaging the broadcasting equipment during this tantrum.
He's completely unhinged.
He is just pleading, for the love of God, please make me official. Give me the match with Ludwig.
What's fascinating here is that we can hear the boss manager attempting, feebly, to establish professional boundaries.
He tries.
He warns Witch about the destruction of company property. He explicitly states the rules of the hierarchy, saying, you quit the qualifier, you don't get the reward.
But the boss manager's tone betrays him. He sounds exasperated, not authoritative.
Oh, completely.
Witch senses that weakness immediately.
Yeah.
He understands that a boundary in a corporate setting is only as strong as a manager's willingness to endure the discomfort of enforcing it.
That's a great point.
So Witch just increases the volume. He creates such an overwhelmingly abrasive environment that the boss manager's primary objective shifts from maintaining the integrity of the Federation to making these men stop screaming.
It is an incredible tactic. The boss manager experiences decision fatigue in real time.
You can hear him breaking.
By relentlessly attacking the manager's patience, which forces a capitulation. The boss manager throws his hands up, yells, fine, fine, fine. You want a match with Ludwig? Yes. All right, bet. And officially grants the championship match for May 9th.
I have to admit, I'm torn on how to view Witch here.
How so?
Part of me looks at this and thinks, is Witch actually a strategic genius?
I mean, he got what he wanted.
Right. Think about the physical toll he just bypassed. He didn't have to spend 45 minutes getting thrown into steel turnbuckles in a 6-person elimination match. He didn't have to risk a torn ligament or a concussion.
True.
He just identified the weakest structural pillar in the Spring 732 corporate architecture, the boss manager's lack of a spine, and he pushed on it until the roof caved in. Isn't that just a brilliant application of working smarter instead of harder?
Well, if we isolate that single variable, bypassing the physical toll, then yes, it appears to be a brilliant efficiency. But Witch's negotiation strategy is catastrophic when you examine the fine print of the deal he struck. Because the boss manager, in a desperate face-saving attempt to reclaim some illusion of authority, attaches draconian stipulations to this golden ticket.
Ah, right. The stipulations are terrifying.
They really are.
The boss manager dictates that if Witch loses this match on May 9th, he isn't just bumped down the rankings. He is suspended. He is officially banned from the memberships.
It is an existential risk. Witch is wagering his entire livelihood, his continued existence within this universe, on a single, isolated outcome.
He's putting it all on black.
Furthermore, the boss manager explicitly clarifies the rules of engagement for May 9th. He announces that this will be a, quote, normal match, unquote, meaning that countouts and disqualifications are strictly allowed.
So Witch cannot simply survive the match. He cannot win on a technicality. He has to secure a clean, decisive victory within the physical confines of the ring without violating any rules against a man who just survived a 20-person war. If Witch miscalculates a single move, if he gets thrown outside the ring for 10 seconds, his career is permanently deleted.
He traded physical jeopardy for administrative jeopardy.
Wow, that's a perfect way to put it.
And the true peril of Witch's gambit is that he is operating under the delusion that he and Ludwig exist in a vacuum, which is hyper-focused on May 9th, believing that his screening match secured him a clean path to the Metal Co-host title.
That it didn't.
No, because the Spring 732 ecosystem abhors a vacuum.
Which transitions us perfectly to what is happening while Witch is busy screaming at his boss, because that massive elimination treasure hunter match It is still happening.
It didn't get canceled.
Which abandoning his spot didn't stop the gears from turning. It just opened the door for apex predators to step into the void.
The remaining field for the treasure hunter match is highly capable. This isn't a collection of mid-level managers we're talking about. These are individuals who understand the profound leverage this specific contract provides.
Let's look at the personnel. You have characters like Creepy Ghost, Nightmare, Alien, and a competitor named Pink Penguin.
A formidable group.
If you are doubting the physical threat level here, the transcripts detail a qualifying match where Pink Penguin squared off against a character called Brain Elephant.
Right.
The sheer mass and conceptual weight of someone named Brain Elephant implies a massive obstacle. Yet Pink Penguin dismantled them effortlessly. Pink Penguin secured their spot with terrifying ease, proving that the competitors in this bracket are entirely lethal.
They have to be lethal, because the prize they are fighting for, the treasure hunter contract, is arguably the most powerful administrative tool in the entire Federation.
It really is.
It is a mechanism designed to subvert fairness.
The mechanics of the cash-in contract are fascinating. If you think about traditional athletics, championship bouts are predicated on equal preparation.
Right, a level playing field.
Two fighters train for months, they weigh in, they sleep, and they meet in the ring at 100% capacity. It is a meritocracy of preparation.
But the treasure hunter contract functions more like a hostile financial takeover or a short squeeze.
Oh, I like that comparison.
It is a bearer bond for a title match. The holder of this contract possesses the unilateral right to demand a championship match at any time, in any location, under any circumstances.
Meaning you do not have to fight the champion when they are ready. You wait until the champion is vulnerable.
Precisely. You don't fight their skill, you fight their exhaustion. You wait until they have endured a brutal 30-minute defense of their title.
Yeah.
You wait until they are physically broken, bleeding, lying on the canvas, barely conscious. And at that exact moment of maximum vulnerability, you hand the physical contract to an official.
And the match starts right then.
The bell rings, the match becomes official, and you simply pick the bones of a compromised opponent.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It is ruthlessly efficient. And the competitors in the treasure hunter match are openly discussing this strategy.
They aren't hiding it at all.
We have hot mic audio of two participants, Giraffe and Moon Clown, laying out their entire master plan. They explicitly state that they have zero interest in the personal drama between Witch and Ludwig.
They don't care about the lore.
They don't care about the lore, the animosity, or who deserves to be medal co-host. They view the May 9th main event entirely as a resource extraction opportunity.
Their strategic clarity is chilling. They intend to endure the treasure hunter qualifier, secure the contract, and then simply wait backstage with a cup of coffee.
Just biding their time.
They will watch Witch and Ludwig destroy each other. And the second the referee raises the hand of the survivor, especially if that survivor is Witch, who just risked his entire career for the moment, they will sprint to the ring, cash in the contract, and strip the title away before the sweat has even dried.
This completely recontextualizes Ludwig's panic attack during his victory speech.
Doesn't it?
Ludwig wasn't just being paranoid, he was the only person correctly doing the math. Ludwig knows that winning the May 9th match does not mean you leave the building with the title.
He sees the board.
He understands that the man standing across the ring from you is merely an obstacle. The true existential threat is the invisible man holding the briefcase in the shadows.
And those shadows are getting increasingly crowded. The demographic landscape of Spring 732 is undergoing a massive, chaotic expansion.
Oh yeah, the bureaucracy is bringing in talent from what the documentation ominously calls outside the memberships.
The terminology alone, outside the memberships, establishes an immediate geopolitical tension.
It sounds so sinister.
It creates a rigid dichotomy between the established institutional roster and this new invading force.
We have footage of these incoming outsiders literally signing administrative contracts on clipboards right in front of the cameras.
It's out in the open.
The influx includes Sun Clown, Moon Clown, Alien, and a faction that absolutely fascinates me. The Mini Animal Squad.
Ah, yes, the squad.
This squad consists of Mini Lion, Mini Tiger, and Mini Monkey. They are flooding the zone, demanding television time, demanding title shots, and severely diluting the power pool of the existing roster.
When you rapidly expand a highly competitive ecosystem, without expanding the available resources in this case, the number of championship medals, you completely eradicate the concept of trust.
Because everyone is starving.
In a stable environment, alliances make sense. In an expanding, hyper-paranoid environment, Every single person in the room is a statistical threat to your upward mobility.
To see that paranoia play out in real time, you just have to look at Moon Clown. Moon Clown and Sun Clown are supposed to be an established alliance.
They arrive together from outside the memberships.
Right, they are a package deal. But during a promotional segment, Moon Clown suddenly turns and viciously threatens his own partner, Sun Clown.
It's so abrupt.
And the reason he threatens him, because Sun Clown was trying to help him too much.
It is a devastating psychological reaction to an unstable environment.
Moon Clown explicitly warns Sun Clown to stay out of his business. He views assistance as a Trojan horse.
Moon Clown understands the brutal math of the cash-in economy. In a world where anyone can materialize with a contract and legally steal your achievements, an ally is nothing more than an enemy who happens to be standing within striking distance.
Man, that is bleak.
Relying on someone creates a dependency, and dependency is a fatal flaw when the rules of the universe reward betrayal.
Okay, so let's consolidate this absolute powder keg. You have Ludwig, a champion paralyzed by the tactical reality of the cash-in.
Okay.
You have Witch, a challenger who has mortgaged his entire career, risking permanent banishment just to get in the room.
Right.
You have a locker room full of treasure hunter competitors waiting to legally mug whoever survives. And you have an influx of paranoid outsiders fracturing their own alliances.
It's a recipe for disaster.
All of this bureaucratic maneuvering, all of this screaming at human resources, all the contract signings on clipboards, it inevitably hits a bottleneck.
Words only go so far.
At a certain point, the paperwork stops and the physics take over. Which brings us to the collision of theory and reality. The May 9th final face-to-face showdown.
This is the moment where the illusion of administrative control completely shatters.
The scene is set for a traditional, prestigious contract signing or stare-down. The boss manager is desperate to maintain order and sell the legitimacy of this May 9th main event.
He's trying to hold it together.
He gets on the microphone and officially decrees that outside interference is strictly banned. He literally reads off a list of names: Big Penguin, Morton, Giraffe, Creepy Ghost, explicitly forbidding them from entering the arena.
He's trying to contain the variables.
He wants a clean, one-on-one alpha dog confrontation between Witch and Ludwig to generate hype.
The boss manager is attempting to impose a classical sports entertainment narrative onto a situation that has already devolved into a street fight. He wants the optics of a fair contest.
They are standing in the ring. The tension is incredibly thick, which starts verbally taunting Ludwig, mocking his alliances.
Poking the bear.
Ludwig, trying to project the confidence he completely lacked during his victory speech, stands his ground. He demands Witch, quote, say it, unquote, to his face.
He's puffing his chest out.
Ludwig points down to the physical metal co-host prop sitting on the table between them. He looks Witch in the eye and says, if you want it so badly, grab it.
Now, if you are a fan watching this, you know the script.
Right.
You expect them to go nose to nose. You expect heavy breathing, harsh words, maybe a hard shove to the chest before a swarm of security guards rushes the ring to separate them.
A controlled escalation of hostilities.
Exactly. A controlled escalation designed to simulate danger without actually inflicting permanent damage.
But Spring 732 does not operate on that script. The tension snaps and absolute unadulterated chaos erupts.
It goes off the rails instantly.
Witch doesn't go for the metal. Witch doesn't shove him. Witch suddenly attacks Ludwig using a cardboard box and a computer keyboard.
A standard computer keyboard.
A literal QWERTY computer keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
He is repeatedly bashing the metal co-host over the head with peripheral office supplies. So absurd.
The sensory details from the audio logs are utterly surreal. You can hear the plastic keys exploding and scattering across the canvas. You can hear the frantic, panicked commentators losing their minds over the broadcast.
They're screaming.
The sheer visceral shock of a piece of IT equipment being weaponized in the middle of this high-stakes, lore-heavy confrontation completely shatters the grandeur of the entire Federation.
It is a profoundly illuminating detail. It exposes the massive chasm between the grand Shakespearean ambitions of these characters and the messy, unglamorous, almost pathetic reality of their existence.
Right. Because they talk so big.
These individuals speak in the sweeping, epic language of kings. They talk about metal admins, cash-in contracts, banishments, and outside the memberships. They treat their workplace like a mythical battlefield.
Yeah.
When the systems fail and the violence begins, they aren't wielding broadswords on a mountaintop. They are in a fluorescent-lit room, beating each other to death with a Dell keyboard. It highlights the desperate absurdity of corporate warfare. It is the ultimate comedic juxtaposition. You have this terrifying, career-threatening blood feud involving keyboards and cardboard boxes. And happening almost simultaneously in the exact same ecosystem, we have the debut of the highly touted Mini Animal Squad.
The invading faction from outside the memberships.
Right. Mini Lion, Mini Tiger, and Mini Monkey march into the arena with unbelievable swagger. They have the numbers, they have the aesthetic, and they immediately demand a co-host spot.
They just want to bypass the line.
They bypass the entire hierarchy and just declare that they are taking over the company. The management, perhaps finally learning a lesson from the witch debacle, refuses to give in to the tantrum.
Good for them.
They tell the squad, you want the power, you have to fight for it right now. So, Mini Monkey steps up to represent the faction in an impromptu, unscripted match to prove their dominance.
A chance to back up their talk.
The bell rings. Mini Monkey engages and taps out in record time.
It's amazing.
Just a spectacular, immediate failure. Within seconds of their grand, terrifying debut, the physical reality of the sport completely crushes their ambition.
It is a brutal calibration of reality. The Spring 732 universe is incredibly unforgiving to those who confuse marketing with capability.
Right.
You can sign all the legal documents on your clipboard, you can possess the most intimidating faction name, and you can demand all the screen time in the world. But ultimately, if you cannot survive the biomechanical reality of the bell ringing, you are exposed as a fraud.
The Mini Animal Squad discovered that ambition without the capacity for violence is just public embarrassment.
Exactly.
The contrast is just magnificent. On one side of the building, the champion is getting battered with the space bar, and on the other, the supposed terrifying invaders are submitting in 5 seconds.
It's poetry.
If you are listening to this right now, you might be thinking, this is incredibly entertaining, but it's a completely surreal, fictionalized universe.
Sure, it seems detached from our reality.
But the reason we dive deep into sources like this is because beneath the absurd names and the plastic weapons, this is a masterclass in human group dynamics.
Let's look at the archetypes we've just unpacked.
Okay, let's break them down. We have Ludwig, the paranoid executive. He represents the tragedy of achieving your ultimate goal, only to realize that the fear of losing your position prevents you from ever actually wielding your power.
He's miserable at the top.
Then we have Mouse, who represents the collateral damage of a fast-moving, high-stress environment, an individual so consumed by the humiliation of a public failure that they project their rage onto the very people trying to help them.
We have the boss manager, who is a massive cautionary tale for anyone in leadership.
Oh, totally.
A manager who sacrifices the long-term structural integrity of his entire organization simply to avoid the short-term discomfort of enforcing a boundary. He rewarded a tantrum, and in doing so, taught his entire workforce that the rules do not apply to the loudest person in the room.
A fatal management error. And of course, we have Witch, the ultimate opportunist, a man willing to risk permanent banishment for a shortcut to the corner office.
It is a complex ecosystem where legalistic contracts and formal administrative titles dictate the flow of power. Yet when negotiations fail, every dispute is ultimately settled through physical trauma and office supplies.
It's just wild.
I urge you to think about these dynamics in the context of your own life. When you examine your own workplace, your corporate structure, or even your local community board, who is the boss manager in your life, giving in to the most abrasive voice just to keep the peace?
We all know one.
Who is the doll, creating massive emotional chaos and then casually walking away claiming ignorance while everyone else fights?
Right.
And most critically, who is the moon clown in your organization?
Well,
Who is sitting quietly in the periphery, holding on to a contract, waiting to cash in on the exact moment you show a sign of weakness? Because these archetypes are not confined to a wrestling ring. They are the fundamental building blocks of human ambition.
that is such a chilling, profound way to look at it. You might think you are safe in your cubicle answering emails, but you might actually be standing in the middle of an elimination treasure hunter match and not even realize it until someone hands you the paperwork.
Very true.
Before we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. Something that builds on the incredible lore of this universe, but that hasn't been explicitly stated by any of the characters or commentators in the transcripts.
Oh, what's that?
Think about the specific, agonizing parameters of the May 9th match between Witch and Ludwig. We know the stakes are absolute. If Witch loses, he is banned from the memberships forever.
Right, that's established.
We also know that the boss manager explicitly publicly stated that this will be a normal match. The boss manager clarified that countouts and disqualifications are strictly allowed. Furthermore, we know from Ludwig's frantic victory speech that he is absolutely terrified of the treasure hunter contract winner. Ludwig's greatest fear is fighting a brutal 30-minute war with Witch, winning the match, and then immediately being cashed in on while he is exhausted and lying on the mat.
His worst nightmare.
So, if you look at the rule book, and if the boss manager allows disqualifications, and Ludwig knows he will be targeted by a vulture the second he secures a hard-fought victory, couldn't Ludwig simply walk into the ring on May 9th, wait for the opening bell, immediately kick Witch below the belt in full view of the referee, and intentionally get himself disqualified?
A tactical disqualification.
Yes. Think about the brilliance of it. By intentionally getting disqualified, Ludwig legally loses the match.
Right.
But according to the standard rules of this universe, administrative titles do not change hands on a disqualification. The champion retains the medal.
Oh my goodness.
So Ludwig keeps his executive power. Because the match only lasted 3 seconds, Ludwig is completely fresh and uninjured, making a treasure hunter cash-in strategically impossible.
Yeah. He'd just beat up anyone who tried to cash in.
Exactly. And the most devastating part of this maneuver, Witch technically wins the match by disqualification. Because Witch won, which avoids the stipulation of permanent banishment.
Right. He doesn't get fired.
But Witch is still denied the medal co-host title.
It would be a masterpiece of bureaucratic warfare, using the rigid structure of the rules to completely break the spirit of your opponent.
Exactly. Ludwig could render Witch's entire month-long tantrum, all his screaming at the boss manager, his withdrawal from the qualifier, and his massive existential risk of banishment completely, utterly pointless in 3 seconds of calculated rule breaking.
Wow.
He could destroy Witch without ever actually fading him.
That is just brilliant.
It brings us right back to the beginning of our conversation. You look at that clean, sterile organizational chart, and you think you understand how the power flows.
You think it's straightforward.
You think you know who is in charge based on the titles. But in the Spring 732 universe, true power isn't about where your name is printed on the page. It is about understanding exactly how to weaponize the fine print of the contracts. And always, always keeping an eye out for flying computer keyboards.
Words to live by.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.